Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. We've had some things coming out about the testimony of Devon Archer about his relationship with Hunter Biden and business relationships with Joe Biden related to Ukraine, China, and elsewhere. And we're not getting a lot of specifics at this point since it was a behind closed doors testimony, but you're getting kind of what you would expect. The Democrats are saying, "Oh, he was just, nothing to see here. It's just kind of Joe Biden. There's no tying this to Joe Biden. It's there's not, just look the other way, no problems." But you have some very specific things being stated by Republicans coming out. Jim Jordan, who was in the hearing, called the information very productive. That the committee provided him with very productive information. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is wont to go into a little more detail based on history, told the Daily Mail in an interview that the Bidens were actually in the actual business of influence peddling, quote unquote. She says it's extremely damning, she said, claiming that there are 20 phone conversations that Devon Archer referred to were directly about business deals. Okay, so Archer said that Joe Biden would participated in 20 phone conversations related to business deals that Hunter Biden was in. Now, did he participate in those to raise the money? What was promised? We don't know that. That hasn't come out. What we do know is that Joe Biden was directly involved in communicating with Hunter Biden's business partners, and not just foreign business partners, and talking specifically to them on business deals. That's based on Marjorie Taylor Greene's report of what came out of the meeting. One of the things that's interesting is, a lot of people sit there and say, well, who is this Devon Archer guy and why does he matter? And what kind of relationship does he have? And he's kind of an unlikely guy to be trying to tip the table over on the Bidens, because he is a person who has been a friend of Hunter Biden since they went to Yale. And when you look back, and this is a Yahoo News publication, I wanted to leave it where I found it, but he co-founded an investment firm, Rosemont Seneca Partners, alongside Hunter Biden and John Kerry's stepson, who was at the time was Secretary of State, but he's now the son of Kerry's now the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, which who cares? But Christopher Hines was part of that. Now, Christopher Hines is his son-in-law. He's not his son. He's his son-in-law, Christopher Hines, being the son of former Senator John Hines from Pennsylvania and his wife, Teresa Hines, who John Kerry subsequently married. Archer was partners with Hunter Biden on the same Rosemont Seneca Partners that did the deal in China, that has gotten a lot of attention from the Chinese energy group that is in fact a subsidiary of the wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party. I looked into that a little bit because as I was digging around today, and there was an interesting 2019 article in NBC that with one of the 4 reporters who actually traveled on a 2013 trip where Joe Biden took Hunter Biden along with him to go to China, and Hunter Biden, it kind of chronicles that Hunter Biden was, I'll just stick there. Hunter Biden was kind of meandering around and kind of popping in and out of official things or different events with Joe where they, ceremonial, have some tea waved over them or some weird thing, just ceremonial stuff. But he also slipped away and met with the person who eventually, about 15 days later, signed up did a massive deal with Hunter Biden, with this Rosemont Seneca Energy Group, which are a hedge fund that Devon Archer was part of, and did a deal, which was a major funding deal, which brought a lot of money into Hunter Biden's pocket. And so the question is, did any of that money flow into Joe Biden's pocket? Quite honestly, based on what's been leaked, it's pretty clear that Devon Archer did not give up Joe Biden in this thing. That he was asked, or you had to have been asked, about who the big guy was, since he was partners in these firms, and he clearly did not. There's not leaking anyway that he gave up Joe Biden at all in that regard. So, which would bolster the Democrats' point, and because the Democrats are trying to say, this was just normal father-son activity, and there's nothing to see here, and there's no breaking of the law. And even sitting in a phone conversation, depending on what the conversation was, would make you have to interpret whether or not that was in fact raising money for Hunter Biden and the like. Given that the Republicans have constructed a case that says very clearly is based around that Bidens weren't selling anything but influence, and that they weren't selling hotels, they weren't selling anything but an influence peddling operation, and that's the case that they've been building. The calls themselves fit the narrative that this was an influence building operation. Having the vice president on the phone with people who are giving you money for influence demonstrates that you have influence and a capacity and a willingness to talk to that person. We know that Devon Archer was in the White House almost 100 times during the Obama presidency, and so we have a lot of ties. But right now, from what I can tell, and I hate to say this, but what we have is smoke still. We don't have, we know the smoke's emanating from somewhere, but Devon Archer does not appear to have pinpointed the fire, and while he's appears, based on Marjorie Taylor Greene's statement, appears to have confirmed a lot of the facts around it. He did not. Once again, we don't have a statement, could be forthcoming, but we don't have anything where anybody's coming out and saying that he has confirmed a financial link between the president, and that will be the case that Democrats make. So this is this is a to be continued situation. And while I love to be able to tell you that this was a major breakthrough, I have to say that it appears that Devon Archer did not do what I think James Comer was hoping he would do, which is basically tip over the table on Joe Biden and the whole scheme. One of the reasons why I just want to go back to this is a in our 2018 article, and it's really about best friends, and I'm scrolling through it here. The Hunter Biden told Devon Archer that they would get the last laugh after conviction was thrown out, an expletive. The reason I have this article up is because it demonstrates the tightness of Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. Devon Archer was convicted in 2018 of fraud, or was being tried for fraud. The federal judge threw the thing out because she did not believe that they could prove, it had sufficiently proven that Devon Archer knew that the bond issuance was fraudulent. This is the exact same case that later on came back and Archer was convicted of, and ended up getting 1 year in jail and having to pay like $43 million in money back to somebody who was defrauded. And so, but in 2018, it was initially thrown out. And Hunter Biden and Devon Archer were in a celebratory mood. And, and this article kind of conveys that level of friendship and trust and partnership. And this is a friendship, trust, and partnership that goes back to college. And so it isn't surprising, given that no matter what, now we know that he was convicted later on of this charge. I don't know how come these guys, how come people get off and then they get back charged, and I don't know the details on that. But I do know that he got convicted of 1 year in jail. We know that on Saturday, the Department of Justice worked on Saturday, which never happens, and sent a note to the Bureau of Prisons saying, hey, we want this guy in jail. And the Republicans reacted to that letter and publicly on the Maria Bartiromo show, because he was scheduled to be testifying today. And Hunter Biden's attorney said, we didn't interpret that as a threat, with an interview with Catherine Herridge from CBS. It seemed like a pretty big threat to me. We're going to throw your butt in jail now, and it's something you've been avoiding for a couple of years. And by the way, it isn't determined what prison you're going to end up in for 1 year. So just a reminder that you can end up in prison. It can be someplace really nice or someplace really not nice. And those are choices at our disposal, not yours. So there was a bit of intimidation. If nothing else, you have to look at it as being intimidation. But I think it's pretty clear that Hunter Biden and Devon Archer are buddies. They're friends. They've gone through a lot together. They've made a lot of money. They've undoubtedly have the same. You have to guess that they're not. If Hunter Biden is busy engaged in certain activities, that Devon Archer's as a friend and somebody who hangs out with him and does business with him is a similar lifestyle. Although there's been no claims to that effect. It seems logical, but but they're buds, and you can't expect Devon Archer to go after and destroy Hunter Biden. So he gave him information and that's you get down to it. That's what happened. So we know that Devon Archer was, at least played golf with Joe Biden one time in 2014 when he was vice president. And so you have playing golf with somebody. There's nothing against the rules about playing golf with somebody. But it's not like Devon Archer wasn't a close enough family friend that he was part of the boys, and that is. So we'll see what transpires. But the good news or bad news is the story is to be continued. The bad news on this is it's not wrapping up. It's going to be a continuation that we're going to get to that we're going to have to continue to endure. So let's see what we have in our chats. DC is like a mafia movie. Teresa, I never thought that was true until today, until this story unwound, and it is like a mafia movie, and you end up dealing with unsavory people who are sometimes very, very smart and very ambitious, and they are very motivated to hit the jackpot. And there's more ways than you don't have to just buy a $2 lottery ticket and have a 1 in 500 million chance to get $1 billion before taxes. To get $1 billion, it's the fact of the matter is the better lottery ticket is be connected to the right people who then throw a bunch of contracts in exchange for influence. And it's tried and true, and a lot of people make a lot of money in this town doing that. It's rare that you find one that's so overt as what Joe Biden appears to be doing. But let's see what the facts kind of how they come out. One thing we need to eliminate is double retirement pay for government workers who tend to be against people that retire Social Security like this. They don't pay into Social Security, so that's the double retirement pay is they get retirement, a pension, and the double retirement pay, and they earn their pension. They negotiate it, and that's what they get. They also have, as part of their pension plan, a 401k, which is called the TSP Thrift Savings Plan. So they get both a fixed benefit, defined benefit pension, and a 401k. With the government contributes 6% of their matches 6% of their income into it. So the government pensions are very, very lucrative. Where you're talking about double dipping is when you sit there and you retire after 20 years, 30 years, and then you become a consultant for somebody to go and help them get grants and other things, direct or do work on the exact project in the military, and the exact project that you were working on as a military person. Then you go and you switch to the contractor side, and you do the same work on the contractor side that you were doing on the military side, and you get paid by the contractor on top of the payment you get as retiree. So there's a lot of that does happen. It's very common here in the DC area, and where we have a lot of military contractors. And it's, the fact of the matter is, that's kind of it's trading. That's basically working the system. And yeah, we need to fix the system, but that's not the kind of corruption that we're looking at with this, where you basically have good old influence peddling and selling access to high-level politicians with the goal of influencing policy. The kind of the double dipping stuff from triple dipping that you see from federal government workers is a pet peeve. But truthfully, a lot of those people, if they didn't do that, there'd be a massive hole in the knowledge of how a lot of our defense systems work, and we'd be in deep trouble under those circumstances, given that there's they are providing a valuable service. Let's put it that way. They're not being paid just because they don't know anything. They're being paid because they actually have knowledge that's needed to keep the system afloat. Let's talk about something else. I've pinpointed several fires starting with government censorship and from big tech to a search for Kurt and Chris and me and the whistleblower and chemtrails. Charles, I don't know anything about that. That's kind of not where I'm going with this. So sounds like the Clintons pay to play. They established when they were governors. Yeah, Charles, that's not that different from Clintons pay to play. We're looking at, and the initial description of a mob operation, it's not that different. Be a shame if that regulation were to happen, or that arms sale was going somewhere. Be a shame if this happened if you didn't pay us the money. So it's most disturbing, and once again, we don't know what came out about Ukraine, but it's most disturbing that the Vice President of the United States his son was heavily involved in a natural gas company in Ukraine, and the Vice President was directly involved in the takedown of the elected Ukrainian leadership in 2014, and then the Vice President used that clout with the new leadership to get the special prosecutor fired, who was specifically targeting the company that his son was involved in and that Devon Archer was involved in. I mean, that's then it laughed and admitted it, that he did that. And that those are all very concerning things. What's also concerning, we have on that instance, a confidential human informant who provided 3 separate conversations with the former head of Burisma. And the third of those, which occurred, I believe, in 2019 or 2020, was appears to have been subsequently contradicted by the former head of Burisma. Interestingly, contradicted after Biden became president, and it became dangerous to have that statement out there. But I'm just saying that one of the major pieces of information that's in the congressional record is the confidential human informant, who's who's compensated well by the FBI to come up with this kind of stuff, may be contradicted by the person who he had on tape saying that 5 million for Biden, 5 million for one Biden, 5 million for another Biden, was what he said, and what the confidential human informant said, and he's denying that. So and you would think that Archer would be someone who would be aware of that, since he was part of the deal and on the board of Burisma. So it remains to be seen what we're going to learn about Burisma out of this. I guarantee you, any exculpatory information toward Joe Biden will be leaked by likely by a guy named Dan Goldman, Representative Dan Goldman, and it will be an information that is damaging to Joe Biden. You'll see the Marjorie Taylor Greene and maybe some others talk about it. So we're gonna, it's gonna be a mixed bag. But what we do know is there's a heck of a lot of smoke, and it's all over the world. And the smoke is all revolving around Hunter Biden business deals and Joe Biden providing influence. And and ultimately, I believe in order to impeach Joe Biden on this, they're going to have to show that Joe Biden directly benefited from these deals, and that Joe Biden did something, that he actually did something to influence something on that was a direct result of it. And some would call that treason, but he's not held to the Trump standard where, gee whiz, we think you may have done something at some point that we didn't like, and because the orange man bad, we're going to impeach you anyway, even though we've got nothing. We have zero. That's we've got 100 times the smoke on this. We got 100 times the fires on this, but the bottom line is, with the confluence of the establishment rallying around Joe Biden, at least on this issue, an attempt to isolate this, quite honestly, because it's so incredibly damaging to the credibility of the president, credibility of this administration, that it's almost impossible for them to outlive it. This is the defense is going to be, you didn't prove that, you might have proved the quid, but you didn't prove the pro quo. So they've got to prove both that he did it, both that he got money, not his son got money, he got money, and he did something in exchange for that money. And it does not appear that Devon Archer gave them that. What he gave them was that he was an active participant in conversations with Hunter Biden's clients, validating that Hunter Biden was in fact using his father's influence as a means of selling clients. But the fact of the matter is, he could sit there and say, as he did when we saw one Snapchat, one of those, where he's on the phone with the Chinese Energy Corporation, and Hunter Biden says in this app, I'm sitting with my dad, we're waiting for your answer. And you don't have to do much more than say, listen, dad's involved, he's paying attention, and you have him on the phone once in a while to validate he's paying attention, without actually Joe Biden saying, you better turn over the money. That was Hunter's job. Joe's just the guy sitting in the background, the godfather sitting in the background, who never fully gets his hands dirty and lets other people get their hands dirty, using the threat of the influence that could be wielded either for them or against them. So that's what we learn about this, is that it's reasonable to believe, based on Hunter Archer's testimony that's been leaked, that Joe was sitting there when Hunter typed the app and said, hey, my dad's sitting right here. We're anxious to hear what we have to do, and we're going to be pretty angry if you don't if you don't deliver the money. So was Joe Biden part of the shakedown? I think that's the thing that the Republicans can derive from this, and little else actually. Now I'm hoping that there's more information, but from what was leaked, that's what appears we can derive. Okay, let's see what we got. Of course it is. How pathetic and pitiful, triumphant Trump you. Okay. I don't know what that's about. Okay, I'm going to go to, gosh, I got people doing friend requests on here. Well, I'm going to end, this part seems to be pretty much done. I'm going to end this broadcast, we'll come back on if there's anything else that leaks that's significant. We'll be on tomorrow again, talking about this and other things. But I think it's almost a little bit of a letdown in that what we know out of this in summary is that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden did get on the call, Joe Biden got on the phone with their clients at least 20 times. And what we don't know is Joe said anything that would be where he would sit there and intimidate the client. But truth is, just having Joe on the call shows that Joe was paying attention in spite of what he said during the presidential debate with President Trump in 2020, that Joe was very much paying attention to what was going on in Hunter's businesses and making certain that his clients knew that Joe was paying attention. And when a politician is making it clear that he's paying attention, that is easy. It's only a dumb person wouldn't infer that politician is in fact not just paying attention, but is taking an active interest. And an active interest means using clout on behalf of Hunter Biden's son's clients. It's impossible to not derive that. The problem is those who don't want to see that won't see it. And hence you don't have the direct linkage you need. You have another step in the linkage, but you don't have the ironclad link. And with that, we may have to wait until Tony Bobulinski weighs in again, who was the CEO of at least one of the Hunter Biden entities, weighs in about what Joe Biden knew and what he didn't know and what he was actually doing to deliver on the promises that were being made by Hunter Biden. And with that, I'm going to close out this. I appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back tomorrow.